We're at quorum.
Thank you, Carly. Good evening, everyone. I am going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the May 12th, 2021 meeting of CB11 Statement of District Needs and Budget Requests Committee. My name is Jason Villanueva, and I am the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:34 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by the Assistant District Manager, Carly Wine, the staff liaison to our committee. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. CB11 members, if you have a question about board business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. If you click the participants icon, the participants panel should appear and you should find the raise hand function there. If you still have technical difficulty, you may click the chat icon and relay your difficulty to the staff. The chat function should not be used for CB11 business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated out loud on the record or during the meeting. Please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. Members of the public, if you have a question or comment about the subjects on the agenda, please raise your hand through Zoom and wait to be recognized.
Okay, I'll do
take the roll call. Thank you.
I'll do the roll call attendance. Okay. Arroyo? Green?
Here.
Malave?
Here.
Meyer?
Here.
Padilla? Santiago?
Here.
Villanueva?
Present.
And Wu. All right, we have quorum.
The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and was posted online. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Committee members, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. Adoption of the meeting minutes. To date, I am still behind. Please forgive me. I was ill these past few weeks, and I know I have been committed to getting that document those documents out so they can be posted. I am committed to ensuring that we have it prior to full board, especially to address the items that are on our agenda today. And further, our meetings for the last few months have been posted publicly and recorded that could be looked at on the website or through our YouTube page. Announcements. The district, thank you. The District Needs and Budget Committee will meet on Thursday, June 10th at 6:30 p.m. The New York City Council has posted the schedule for public hearings on the executive budget for fiscal year 22 on their website calendar. So the first item on our agenda is, the mayor's executive budget for fiscal year 2022. I know last meeting we got it probably, if not the day of or before. So I wanted to provide enough time so that the committee liaisons would be able to go back to your chairs and even possibly, I know a lot of committees have met up, if not all have met up to at this point. And, we want to recap on those discussions. And as that was brought up on last committee meeting, when we started talking about committee testimony for the other committees outside of this one, as well as a taking a stance or a resolution. So we began that discussion last month. And again, as far as process and vetting, we want to follow the 60 days. So, I hope that we had a lot of recon performed in the last couple of days. I know it wasn't too much, so we can have an elaborate discussion. So, anybody like to chime in? I'm sorry, did somebody raise their hand?
And I guess I can start. I can just talk about what happened at the Public Safety and Transportation Committee and Environment, Open Space and Parks Committee. Unless, John, you feel a desire to talk about the Parks Committee, because I knew you were there.
No, Carly, you can probably express it better than I can.
Okay.
Since Andrew's not here tonight, Carl, after you, I'll talk to land use and plannings committee.
Just to clarify, I am here tonight.
Sorry, didn't
But
see you.
no,
Sorry.
No, hey, no problem. But yes, you're right. I was not at land use. It was my mother's birthday. So yes, please let us know what happened
God
at land use.
bless. Happy birthday, Mom.
Thank you.
Happy
Thank
Mother's Day to all the ladies as well. Thank you.
She's very happy to still be here.
God bless her. So Carly, please, and then yes, I'll cap just so that other committee members can see what the effort is and where we're trying to go.
Yeah, okay. So first, at the beginning of the month, we had the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. That was, I think, maybe the first or second committee meeting in May. I know it was my first committee meeting in May, so we kind of reviewed each budget request submitted by the committee one by one, and then talked about whether or not the committee pushed forward and provide testimony on anything. And they did decide to write testimony on the following topics. They wanted to submit testimony regarding the request to the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice regarding the Mayor's action plan for neighborhood safety at Wagner houses. They submitted a request to expand the program to all of the 90 developments, and it couldn't be funded at this time. Hold on, I'm gonna mute you, Jason. I'm sorry. Okay. So it wasn't. So yeah, they're writing testimony about the mayor's action plan for neighborhood safety, advocate for the need in our district for that program and different NYCHA developments rather than just at Wagner. And then they're going to respond to 2 requests to Department of Transportation, just generally regarding street lighting and the need for that to help with neighborhood safety. And then they want DOT to commit to exploring residential parking permits as it relate with the upcoming congestion pricing. So that is public safety and transportation. After that meeting, as I was thinking back to that meeting, I felt like the discussion could have been more effective. We could have used our time better by not rereading every single budget request, every single line item, word for word. So for my next committee, for Environment, Open Space and Parks, what I had done was I did a summary for them of like what was funded, what was not funded, what is still uncertain, with just grouped different requests into those categories. I sent it to you all in an email. And from there, and Jessica, the chair, did a summary of 2 of the budget documents that I sent over, the executive summary that I presented on last time, and the mayor's message on the executive budget. And she reviewed that as related to the agencies that fall under the purview of her committee, and that combined with the summary of the CB11 requests, we felt that it provided, just a good foundation for the discussion on testimony. And then they did also decide to submit testimony, and they're going to submit testimony regarding the dual district sanitation garage. Upon Jessica's review of the mayor's message, she was able to review it and find that that DSNY has a number of capital funding, capital dollars committed to certain dual district garages and different facilities across the city. And even though that garage is a commitment of a commitment from the mayor as a result of the rezoning, it was not included in the 10-year plan. So we're submitting testimony about that. And then they're gonna submit testimony about comfort stations and street tree maintenance. No, that's that committee. And I mentioned the process just the way we went about it in environment, open space and parks, because it was way more effective and it saved a lot of time. And I think it's something that, I know I spoke to Giselle about it this week about, trying out that method for Economic Development and Culture Committee. Yeah, that's my report.
Thank you so much, Kaya. That was awesome. It sounds like a lot of great work and efforts are going to be put forth out of the committees. And it's really exciting to hear that we're submitting testimony. I constantly reiterate how much work and effort we've all put in to bring the board at this stage, and to now hear that they're using the resources is extremely exciting, towards our future efforts. Land use and the land use committee was pretty straightforward. Waited till new business, and I brought up the item about, for the concern with the digital divide and the ULIP applications, and as it relates to our senior citizens and anybody who's having challenges with just being able to get on a computer and be a part of these processes. DCP has a standard of practice that just pretty much needs to be activated. It was brought up to land use. And, just as I practice what I preach, right? Can't be activists without being advocates, and we can't be advocates without being active. And with that said, I recommended that I would reach out to the Department of City Planning and start scheduling those trainings with the coordinating with the staff. Our district manager Angel was present, and ensuring that not only the board gets trained, but our district, and try to figure out how we could do that, right? And that'll be a process of discussion at executive committee, which I have all intention of bringing up. And of course, any other reports from our other committee liaisons would be very imperative, because I would love to bring whatever possible concerns we have to this executive session this month. So that's land use. We're setting up the trainings. That was figured out literally at this committee, right? There was some miscommunication there. And as we dug, we were able to figure out that DCP does provide that service, and, something to remove from the board this year, and look for a new need next year. So would anybody else like to speak? Any of the other liaisons from your committees? Any victories, as we just brought up, or challenges that you're having, or concerns? It'd be really, this is the time. I recognize Giselle. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Carly was saying, I had a discussion with her, and the document that she sent that the other committee had made did help a lot, because sometimes when you're reading it word for word, it's just too much to read and too much to take in. So when you get like funded, not funded, and then funded uncertain, the bullet points make it easier. So for economic development next week, I plan to just quickly submit that, and then I'm gonna add the mayor's message after the testimony, which I spoke to Marissa, and she's okay with submitting testimony, but I'm gonna take it to the board and see how everyone else feels, because I feel like the most important things to touch up on in the testimony is the occupational training programs, the expansion of the programs for the film, fashion, food, manufacturing, life sciences, and healthcare industries, and the support for the nonprofit cultural organizations. I also want to see if we can somehow advocate for like financial education, like credit education, maybe like a bank can offer some type of help with that, and then home ownership education. Um, the mayor's message, I think I'm just gonna bullet point like how much SBS is getting, like the 317.6 million, and then how that gets distributed, and then how it gets distributed through each, like SBS, NYC, EDC, how much they get through SBS, so on and so forth. Carly had also mentioned to talk about the summer youth programs. The mayor is planning to implement this summer and the funding that they're getting, the clean and green, which is going to be really good because that can create jobs, especially like low skilled jobs for our community, the tourism, in the small biz section for the mayor's message. And then I think I just want to end it with like, after the mayor's message, like our message, which is instead of like reiterating to SBS, because Marissa had also mentioned to me that SBS is going to be in East Harlem. The compliance department is going to be in East Harlem from SBS, like I think next week. So instead of reiterating to them our needs, just since we know how much they're getting and how much everyone's getting, we can ask how much money has been put into servicing East Harlem through these programs that already exist for us, as opposed to saying, we need this, we need that, we need this. We know that funding is available through this program. How much of it is being used in East Harlem? And then, yeah, then just wrapping up with like kind of like our message in a way.
Thank you, Giselle. Anybody have any questions for Giselle?
Looks like we have a hand in, oh, we have a hand in the public. Marguerite Singleton, I'll give her permission to speak.
Thank you, Carl.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Great.
Hi, Margarita.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Jason. I have one question. It's regarding the mayor's message / visit to East Harlem. He came a couple of days ago, and I had no idea that he came, and he came to Wagner. And I would have been willing to, at least be out there, listen, and possibly get to ask him a question or two. But I had no idea he was coming until during the time that he was at Wagner. Is there any way that we, the public, can know when the mayor is visiting any particular area? Hello?
Hi, yes. Does anybody want to take that or would you like me to?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carly. That's the civil service. That's the civil service department.
Yeah. So, I mean, we don't receive formal notice about, I mean, we usually don't. I'm not sure. I didn't know that he was there and I'm not sure why he was there.
Mhm.
I know that certain email newsletters that I subscribe to, like City and State New York, they'll include the public schedule of our electeds, like specifically the mayor and I believe the mayor and definitely the governor. But that's the extent of my knowledge. I'm not sure if anyone else knows better than me.
Wow. Okay. Because I subscribe to an email list for the city as well, and I didn't get that notification. And since you mentioned the governor, actually, that was the first word that I heard was that it was the governor. And then later, while the mayor was here, I heard it was the mayor. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. I definitely would tell you to subscribe to our newsletter. I do know it's extremely informative. The staff work rigorously on it, and we can't capture everything that happens, but I do promise you, we make our best, our good faith effort. So thank you for your question. So with that said, I'll close the portion on Giselle's report for economic and development. Would anybody else like to go on? Next, please. Okay, I see no hands raised. With that said, we'll go to the next portion of the agenda. Committee testimony, which we pretty much covered while we were talking about the committee discussion from the budget liaisons, and more importantly, the resolution that was discussed last month. I haven't seen any documents or any information provided by the committee as to wanting to take a particular position. And just as a little bit of a clarification, last year, what was provided was a letter of comment. It's no different than the letter of comment or the statement to the mayor that we wrote this year for the original budget, right? For the initial budget that was issued. Now we're at the executive. Last year, I think we did both, but I could be wrong. Forgive my time and bearings. But we have every opportunity to do the same this year. With that said, I do know there was a concern in particular with the citywide NYPD budget with that, and that was deferred to as far as the social motion idealistic perspective of the challenge to public safety and transportation. But the resource allocation is obviously something that we can have a discussion towards. And I open the floor up on us having that discussion on whether we would like to write another letter as it relates to the executive budget. Carly was generous enough to also email that document to us that we did last year. Carly, I don't know if you would like to just pull it up real quick, just so the committee can see it.
Okay, just give me a
I
moment.
loved it because it just ran my memory with seeing it again and seeing why we did it, right? We were in a very different circumstance last year with the alarm and concern of the district financially than is to be said this year for the state, right? I'm not going to say that for the district. I think East Harlem is always dealing with disproportionate funding and budget allocation challenges. But the reality is we have to do a lot of homework and digging as a committee so we can present that in a constructible fashion. So with that said, my perspective is open to anybody else's that would like to speak on behalf of the item that was brought up last month. While Carly finds the letter, just to jog your memories.
My hand is raised, but I don't know if you can see it.
Excellent. No, I can't. So thank you. Go ahead, Andrew. I recognize you
Okay.
while Carly's looking for the letter.
Oh, great. Thank you. I saw a screen sharing was starting and I was like, hope that's not my screen. No, okay, it was not. Okay, cool.
We know you got roses and flowers on your screen, so.
Yeah, man, all innocent stuff here. But with regards to the letter, I know last year we had someone from one of the community organizations that was pushing along with about 200 others for defunding the NYPD. And we will have someone in tonight. I sent, I know we'd like put aside space for it if they did come, but I had not actually, sent an email confirming just because they were not sure. But they just literally, as I got onto the meeting here, I saw their email saying they would be able to join just after 7. So at some point through our conversation, they should be able to join us and give a bit more context, like you were saying about like, okay, well, talk about this in generalities, but kind of more specifically, what does the landscape look like this year and what are the needs and, why are different community organizations, mayoral candidates and just, activists and organizers and directly impacted folks calling for a reallocation of NYPD funds into community.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anybody else have anything to say on this this item? So Carly just posted on the share screen. She's showing you our Community Board 11 statement on the fiscal year
Oh,
2021.
and I'm
executive.
sorry. Also, I am gonna dip out really quick because I
Okay.
just got a call that might be the panelist, so I have to hang up and see. I'm not sure.
Understood. No problem, brother.
Okay.
Thank you. Community Board 11 statement on the fiscal year 2021's executive budget, and it pretty much summarizes the efforts of, reallocating certain funds that were a concern from administrative agencies last year. In particularly, it was brought up by the New York Police Department, and it was, our position was to reallocate those funding sources to youth and education and or social services based off the needs of the district. I've had an elaborate conversation with public safety and transportation. I know that they've advised us that they are dealing with the police reform, and they have conversations around this subject matter, but there was nothing specific brought up to their committee as it relates to particularly if there was challenges with the budget. There's a great excerpt right there that Carly has as an example, right? Like, namely, savings generated from cuts to the Department of Education's budget amount to 27 times that of the police department. Again, I don't know necessarily today if that's the challenge that we still present ourselves for our district, but we are always concerned with the lack of allocated resources. In particular, this year seems to be the issues is with the senior citizens. Again, that's from my brief analysis. Again, I will open the floor to other committee members if they'd like to share. I recognize Xavier.
Thank you, Jason. And just real quick, we have our the Youth Symposium planning meeting with our co-partners at 7:30. So I will have to drop off then because I'm hosting that. I just want to ask for a point of clarification. Was any of this, when it comes to public safety and transportation and their budget related matters, brought up at public safety and transportation as was recommended last month? Because I don't recall the recommendation presented by this committee to those members raising the issue to bring it to them. And I don't recall it being on the agenda or discussed.
I think that answers your question, Xavier.
Negative.
Well, Andrew had to hop off.
Oh,
I
okay.
imagine he's coming back on. That's what he had said before. I was at the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. The budget itself was discussed, but this letter wasn't mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Xavier. Giselle.
I think I would just, if it's possible, to have a little bit more time to just examine like different parts of, obviously, like what goes into, like, once you defund, let's say you reallocate certain funds from the police department, what exact organizations, like you said, the youth and social services, specifically how much, for example, like a lot of our residents, that live, let's say, for example, in NYCHA, is it possible to have somehow like them chime in, or like hear from like the public, like from the real public, like the people who, like the areas that get the most 911 calls? Is it a possibility to hear from those local residents so that we can then start to kind of maybe like just put the pieces together? Because it's just a lot that goes into our community, and it's a lot of people will be affected obviously by that, and so I just maybe a little bit more time to just address like the certain agencies and see, like, I'm interested to hear from the person that Andrew was saying at 7:30, because I do need clarity, because for me, diving into like a book, let's say, or diving into the internet, it does take longer, and the work is needed, and you make it fun. But I just don't have enough clarity to really sit down and present something or speak on something or write on something that I'm still like a little fogged about. But yeah.
I pulled up the letter. I realized that I sent the statement on the executive budget, but there was also, last year was a blur. There was also this letter, and this is a letter that is more explicit about reducing funding and redirecting it.
I have my hand raised.
Oh.
Go ahead, Xavier.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I would recommend is that we have, as an institution, and I think I really thank you, Giselle, for what you expressed there, because I think it is very important to check in with the community we represent. And I've been out in the field since day one, and I can tell you what I'm hearing from a lot of the local residents in NYCHA and elsewhere is there is this concern because there has been an increase in gun violence and crime. And so there is a very valid concern. And I think that we should definitely do a heavy amount of checking in with the people we represent. And again, as someone who's been out there in the field, I think that's important for all of us to do that. But on another end, we should also look at other agencies with accountability and funding and diving into their their allotments, if you will, because I think that part has to be weighed in. So I think a response short of engagement with public safety and transportation and a full robust conversation in conjunction with this committee's work, we would not be doing our level best if we didn't take those steps. So thank you, Giselle, for your comments. It was very helpful.
Thank you, Xavier. I see that one of the other attendees, I don't know if Marguerite's hand is still raised from earlier.
That's a new hand.
Okay.
Go ahead, Marguerite.
Thank you. I happen to know firsthand that NYCHA is developing a roundtable. It's the Resident Engagement Department. And this roundtable is supposed to start in June. They are accepting they stopped already. They stopped accepting applications May 10th. I happen to have applied for it. And it's for that exact purpose that Giselle spoke about, to get information from tenants and gather it and present it to whatever committee or board of CB11. So NYCHA is trying to get something started. I can't believe I'm speaking for them, but yes.
No, that's awesome, Morgan. Thank you. I would love for you to forward us that notice. So maybe we could do a little outreach, some coordination between our housing committee and our public safety and transportation committee.
Okay, drop an email in the chat and I can forward it to you. I'm looking right at it from my email.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We see you on, Helen. Thank you. We're having discussion before we go into your presentation. Appreciate you for coming in to provide us some clarity. So then, with that said, it sounds like the committee still has some homework to do, and that means then we'll be tabling this item for next month. Whether to again, there's the thought process of drafting a resolution that will deal with all of the concerns of budget disparity within our particular district. I know there's a citywide movement as shown to you. Sorry, hey, you want to say hi? It's the little one. I'm sorry, guys. Excuse me a second. What you want? Sorry. I lost my track of thought. With that said, right, there seems that there just needs to be a little bit more homework done to see if that concern that was brought and raised last year is relevant for this year as it relates to our district, right, in Community Board 11. And with that said, you know, my thought process again is more to the letter or the statement on the executive budget as is. And it sounds like we have a lot of testimony from various committees. We're getting testimony from public safety. We're getting testimony from environmental open space, economic development, that are telling you the positions and the stances that they're taking as a committee. With that said, we could wrap that up and make it a position of the board, no different than the letter that was brought up that Carly's shown. With that said, that also allows us to further elaborate on the challenge and concerns as it relates to budget justice specific to the NYPD and our district. There was $1 million increase in CB11's district for the NYPD. Why? That's a question for public safety and transportation and the liaisons of that committee through district consultation with the NYPD. With that said, if there are no further questions or concerns relevant to that topic, I would like to move the agenda along.
I'm sorry, since I'm just a bit confused. What are I missed because I was off the call. What did I exactly miss? I just got back on.
I'm sorry, Andrew. I don't know what part you missed. I wasn't to what extent?
Oh, sure. We haven't.
Oh, there was a lot of questions brought up by the committee as to what position and or stance we could or should take and why we should do it. With that uncertainty, it's not as if there's something that we could do today, right? We don't have a letter drafted. We don't have a resolution written, so we can't take a position. With that said, it's being tabled until next month. Last year, we wrote a letter, a statement to the mayor as it relates to the budget inequality for our district. And of course, we emphasized the NYPD and their gross budget versus the Department of Education. We've also wrote a letter that specifically asks for the NYPD's budget to be reduced and the funding to be reallocated. So this conversation while you was on the off the line and coordinating with Helen, which we appreciate, was to bring the membership back up to speed. The membership is up to speed, and there seems to be still uncertainty and concerns as to what we should do necessarily. And again, if I interpreted or stated that wrong, any other committee members would like to raise their hands and further elaborate to Andrew, that would be great.
Well, thanks for that summary.
I try. There's a lot of minds here to try to collect. So with that said, we don't have the document. There are still questions and concerns. That's why I believe I'm gonna try this chat thing. Forgive me, Helen, right from the Justice Committee, who's gonna give some information, some education to us on that. So I would like to just move the agenda along since she's just coming on and it's theoretically new business or presentations. So now that we're at the new business item, I would like to turn it over to Helen. And I think Andrew should provide the introductions.
Oh, okay. Well, Helen, if I missed something, please do let me know. But we are lucky tonight to have Helen Guzman here, lead organizer at the Justice Committee and point person for the defund campaign. So she's, we spoke about trying to understand a bit better what are the contours of the demands, where is this movement now, how does that relate to our local budget, and how does it relate to what we did last year and what we might do going forward. So nothing, I mean, that's it. I'm really appreciative that Helen could take the time. I mean, I know that you and all the other CBOs working on this are super busy, so I appreciate you taking the time to help us better understand what's going on around this budget.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I apologize for not having my video on, but I think that my internet is just not going to be able to handle that right now. So I will turn it on in a few to try it. But thanks for that introduction. Like Andrew said, my name is Helen and I'm the lead organizer at the Justice Committee, also the lead organizer on the defund campaign. So thanks again for having me here. I work at the Justice Committee, and the Justice Committee is a grassroots organization that organizes with families who've lost loved ones to police, and who also organized to build alternatives that reduce reliance on police to keep communities of color safe. So as you all know, the Justice Committee, the families and our allies within our coalition CPR, Communities United for Police Reform, are calling for the NYPD to be defunded and that money to be redirected to communities. And we're currently gearing up for the fiscal year 22 budget fight at the city level. We're in that fight right now, and just preparing to continue that. We have a budget proposal report that's budget report that's going to be released in the next few weeks. So definitely am looking forward to staying in touch with you all, specifically with Andrew, to send more details your way. So tonight, I definitely wanted to make it here to give just a general update on the mayor's proposed NYPD budget for fiscal year 22. And like I said, it's going to be broad strokes. But I learned that you all joined the Budget Justice campaign last year, so thank you for that support. And last year, just in review, we were all united, like with a lot of organizations across the city and coalition to call for defunding the police. And although the mayor and the speaker stated that the NYPD was cut by $1 billion, this is definitely a myth and really far from the truth. We were able to cut the NYPD by a couple $100 million. And those numbers are being crunched right now. I think that ultimately, essentially nothing was defunded from the NYPD, since the NYPD is on track to blow through those cuts by several $100 million in overtime. So, there's a lot of folks, that talk about a lot of the increase in gun violence and et cetera, being a direct result of our campaign. However, that could not be further from the truth, where we're seeing that they're going to be blowing through those cuts by several $100 million in overtime, like I said. So in this executive budget that the mayor has proposed, he's proposed a $200 million increase for the NYPD, which is the most expensive NYPD budget proposed. And our policy points remain the same as last year. We want police out of schools, which is not the case in this proposed budget. It's still in the NYPD budget. We want NYPD out of mental health, which is also not the case in this executive budget. And we want police out of engagement and social services. Also the elimination of units like the Strategic Response Group that's responsible for the repression of New Yorkers' constitutional right to protest through police brutality and mass arrests. And this, will ultimately cost millions of dollars for New York City that isn't coming from the NYPD's budget. And yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally, we are still pretty firm in our belief that we need to be redirecting this money, that's these billions of dollars. The NYPD's budget is at 5.4 billion for their expense budget. Their fringe budget is 5.7 billion. And we want to see these monies coming towards evidence-based community violence prevention programs that are not led by police. We want to see that money going, towards those kinds of programs that actually address harm and really keep our communities healthy and safe, and not away from the NYPD's essential bloated budget. Just continue. The continuation of expanding their budget, increasing their reach in communities of color, and further putting our communities of color at risk because of the lack of resources that will keep them safe. but yeah, that's what I have for now. We also have a workshop actually coming up in next Thursday where we're going to have a lot of this more detailed, and we're hopeful that you're able to plug into that. I'm going to drop it in the chat, and also send I think I sent to Andrew the flyer already, so that folks can pop into that workshop, and there we will have more firm numbers to share.
Thank you, Helen. Really appreciate your presentation and taking the time to share your expertise with us. With that said, I will open the floor up to the committee members if we have any questions. I recognize Andrew.
Hey, Helen, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to ask, I know that it seems as though, the campaign is still trying to get a specific, you said you're going to be getting your budget analysis out in the next few weeks or something like that. Like there's going to be as I see on your website, you guys have your documentation from 2020, but y'all are going to be ramping up and kind of putting that up in the next few weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah, hopefully the next week or so.
Okay, in the next week or so. So then that would be the type of stuff that us as a committee could kind of look to in more concrete terms and see what are the ways in which we, may consider supporting. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's basically the most concrete space. There's going to be a budget hearing, also city council budget hearing on May 25th as well. So we're definitely going to be there as well, speaking on our demands for the cuts that we want to see.
Well, I was going to say, when you have those specific demands, all that documentation, please do send it our way, because I know it's really important to our community. When we're talking, there's general demands, there's a general desire to defund the NYPD, but then people always want to know, okay, at a local level, how's that going to look? So I know for our community, it's really important to know locally what'll that look like, because this is a neighborhood that does deal with crime, and I know that there are folks who are worried about that. And so I wanted to know if you could just talk about some of the target areas that you're looking at. A lot of times, we do see, as you mentioned, when we talk about defund, people are like, that's why crime is going up. And while there's no statistics to back that, again, I just want to know specifically, if you have that, at least for now, what are some aspects of the NYPD budget that you were looking at, right? Are you looking at precinct level, or are you looking at other programs at the NYPD, and then what are those?
Yeah, so I think in regards to the precinct level, what I know about this at the moment is that this is not necessarily the way that the council budget process looks at the cuts. So for example, like when we're asking to cut, like we're calling for the elimination of units like the strategic response group. That is a particular that's actually not in the power of the city council to do. So we are calling for actually like what would be an equivalent of of uh, of like what that unit, how many officers are in that unit. And so the fight isn't really at the precinct level at all, since different precincts have range in, some police precincts have like 400 to 500 officers and some just 100. So they're really not able to decide which precincts get an increase or a decrease in terms of the cuts that we're calling for. But yeah, I mean, we are definitely looking at programs that reduce police, like get police out of these social programs, social issues that we don't need police presence in, like mental health, like youth development, youth work, and homeless, homeless outreach. We were able to cut that last year. But we also know that the NYPD figured out how to essentially continue to do that in a new traffic stops. The NYPD figured out how to, like, they have a unit that's like business improvement unit, that they're also doing the same thing in terms of homeless sweeps, which is what we wanted to avoid. So that's basically the approach that we have at the moment that I am able to share right now.
Okay, thanks. And I know there's
Thank
only
you.
so much you can share right now. Thank you.
Agreed. And we have and so much time. As we know, I love to keep on time as respect for everyone's time. Thank you, Helen and Andrew, for your question. I will. Okay, I thought we had another hand up. There it goes, Xavier. I'll take one more question on this item, and then again, this was a recon effort for research and development of how we're looking to make a statement on the executive budget as submitted.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Helen, for coming to present real quick, because I know I have to go host another meeting with our youth symposium, and we are focusing on justice-based issues. And I wanted to find out, with the budget analysis, are you diving into other agencies as a holistic measure and reassessing how we look at the city when it comes to the holistic care and good governance, or is it exclusively just NYPD's budget? Because there are overlap of many, and where appropriations is it, so again, are you taking a broad spectrum or just exclusively trying to narrow down on NYPD exclusively?
Yeah, I think in our budget report, what's gonna be included in that is for sure going to be all the cuts that we want to see from the NYPD, and calling for a hiring freeze, etc. And also what we want to see, budget investments and budget priorities. So a lot of the programs that our organizations and coalition partners have been fighting for, including housing and rent assistance, as well as our own, like the specific vision that we have for mental health, which is programs that are like the New York City Parachute Program, peer-based mental health programs, and other harm reduction programs that we want to see.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I apologize if I wasn't more clear. So it's exclusively looking at NYPD as an agency and not any of the others, and how you would see funding across the city.
Yes. I mean, we are targeting the NYPD's budget.
Okay, that's all I needed to know, is that it was just exclusively on NYPD versus the other agencies that you were targeting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. No other questions. Helen, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time and presenting. I also think I wrote a lot. And since none of the other committee members asked, I thought to add. Last year, we had, I believe it was your same organization and in the state or city controller's office that pretty much broke down a, sorry, Jason, I didn't see it till just now. A financial way, to reappropriate these funds. And I think it was very helpful. I don't know if the controller, I know he's running for mayor this year, so I don't know if we could get something like that as well. It definitely helps when we get something from the city that shows how we could break off. So I don't know if you have that. And I definitely would recommend that you present to public safety and transportation, as well as youth and education. I think it's very important that this conversation continues, and that all sides of the table are heard in respective to this concern and how it relates to budget justice as well as to public safety. So those are my two asks, not really a question. And I think it really helps. And again, this is board talk, so it helps us to define that. So with that, I'll recognize Jason. And then we'll close so we're on time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, you know, we talk about the NYPD budget, but it doesn't actually, typically when we're talking about the budget, we're not actually including the full amount that they get, which is over $10 billion. When we look at all of the additional costs that the NYPD gets. So that includes police pension, fringe benefits, settlements, and other spending. And so that's over $10 billion. And so I also wanted to just note that this is about priorities. And so we're not just talking about policing or the NYPD, but we're talking about our priorities, which is part of the work that we're doing on the community board. And so the NYPD doesn't operate in a vacuum. And so when we're talking about decriminalization and harm reduction, all these other things, we are talking about increasing funding to other agencies. So it's not that the other agencies are not part of the conversation, they absolutely are. And so that includes housing, health and hospitals, education, DOE, all of these other agencies that need additional funding and that we've talked about for years and years and years, that we want to see increased investment across the board in these agencies. Sanitation is another one that we've talked about, right? So there's so many different agencies that are underinvested, that have been systematically disinvested in. And so I really appreciate the presentation that helps kind of lay out and break down these issues. So thank you, Helen, for speaking with us today.
Thank you for your comment, Jason. Do anybody have any other questions? Andrew, and then let's close it out because I think we lost quorum.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was up from before.
No problem. Helen, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please get your information to us. I'll definitely incorporate it in the minutes. And again, I recommend that this conversation be brought both to public safety, transportation, youth, and education. So some of these social emotional challenges are dealt with, as well as we're looking at the resource allocation aspect of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye, y'all.
Any other new business? Great. Roll call.
Oh, sorry.
There he goes. No problem. You're better off doing that because we're small tonight. I can't see their hand.
No,
I can't see their hands faster than you guys want to speak sometimes.
Oh, I'm so sorry, man. I didn't mean to chime in. I thought I was on mute.
Oh,
Sorry.
Carly, I turned the wheel over.
Okay, I'll do the roll call now. Arroyo,
Here.
Green, Malave, Meyer,
Here.
Padilla,
Here.
Santiago, Villanueva,
Here.
and Wu.
Here.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting's adjourned, 7:31 p.m. Please have a great evening and blessings to all of you and your families.
You
Good
too.
night,
Take care.
everyone.
Night.
Good night.